Breaking news into HQ, and the New York Knicks are moving on in the NBA's second season. First time in a decade they win a playoff series. This a 5, taking out a 4 in 5 games. Knicks 106-95 in Game 5. Their second win in Cleveland. The Knicks having won the last 3 games of the season to dispatch Donovan Mitchell and the Cavaliers. Jalen Brunson leads the way with 23 points on a night Julius Randle tweaks that bum ankle. Let's get some insight from HQ NBA insider Bill Reiter. And Bill, your biggest takeaways from this Knicks Cavaliers series is what?
The Knicks are a lot better, Jim, than I and a lot of people around the league gave them credit for, and the Cavaliers are not nearly as far along as we thought they were. And let's just go with the New York Knicks, who win this series in dominating fashion. We knew they were great offensively. They were extraordinary in this series defensively, an area they were inconsistent in over the course of the regular season. And that road to the conference finals certainly looks easier than it did a few weeks ago, as that Miami Bucks series looks like it'll go Miami. You got injuries to Giannis Antetokounmpo that's made that the case. So credit Tom Thibodeau, credit Jalen Brunson, one of the most disrespected, including by me, groups and teams in the NBA, proving doubters wrong in a pretty impressive way.
Very well said. Before we get to that Eastern Conference, let's focus on Jalen Brunson. His biggest impact on this team was what?
You know, it turns out, and I mean, you can see the scoring and you can see the offense, and it's clear that he's not just the best player on that team. He's the best player on the floor in this series, and Brunson is good enough to be the best player, at least have a chance at that, Jim, over the course of every series they're in, and that is what you need to win playoff games. But the thing that you've heard talking to people around the NBA, people in the organization, that's started to come out now as a narrative in some of the interviews that teammates have done over the course of the Knicks' success over the last few weeks in terms of this playoff run, is the guy's leadership. He is quieter maybe than your average locker room leader, but there is a calm demeanor and a surety to Jalen Brunson that has become a part of the moxie, the approach, the steel that is in this Knicks team. His teammates have talked about it. People in the organization will talk to you about it. And just watching the games, you can see Jalen Brunson is so ready for these moments, this pressure, the postseason, and all that comes with that, especially as a Knick and their lack of success really in this century. And that, I think, is rubbed off on that basketball team.
Yeah, kind of puts his head down. He's a bulldog, goes to work, no-nonsense player, kind of a throwback, if you will. How about giving some credit, though, Bill, and you touched on him at the outset, to someone that doesn't get enough credit for what they've done in New York, and I'm talking about the coach, Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah, I think that's the next point. And look, there's a few stats we could point to, but one, Jim, that jumps off the page to me as I look at it here. 17 offensive rebounds in this game for the New York Knicks versus 3 for the Cleveland Cavaliers. That is a stat that is about effort and heart and given a you-know-what. And that's exactly what Tom Thibodeau teams do. But they play defense. And certainly the ability for this team to be so much better defensively in this series than they were in the regular season, that's about Tibbs. But also just the effort and never giving up and outplaying your opponents, as I think is absolutely capturing that 17 offensive rebound stat. You're right. This is a coach who's been there for a while, hadn't quite found the mix. Brunson's a big part of what he needed. And this looks like those old Thibodeau teams of the Bulls that I covered with some frequency, where they've got a dynamic offensive player, plus the heart and the hustle and the defense that comes to the Tibbs team, and that is a dangerous combination.
You touched on the rebounding. Mitchell Robinson, a big part of that for the Knicks. But, you know, when you looked at this series, you looked at the front line of the Cavaliers, led by Jarrett Allen, and you thought maybe Cleveland had an advantage there. Didn't play out like that. Your biggest takeaway from the Cavaliers' perspective in losing this in 5 is what?
Yeah, Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley, who I'm a big fan of and I think has a huge ceiling, but obviously is a young guy. It's that everything we've said about the Knicks, the fact they have a leader who's calm under pressure, the fact that they gave so much effort, the fact that they were ready for the moment because of their star player, Jalen Brunson, and their coach, Tom Thibodeau, none of those things were true for this Cleveland Cavaliers team. Now, that can change, right? In the years ahead, this experience, the heartache of losing to the Knicks in 5 games, of the Cavs not living up to the expectations they thought they could meet for this year, maybe that transforms into some of those things. But my big takeaway for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they're not as young as they were, a couple years ago, because obviously you've added some veterans, and Donovan Mitchell's the main guy in that conversation. They're not ready for this. Donovan Mitchell had, I don't know what it was, Jim, 28 points, but on a lot of shots. He was inefficient throughout this series. That superstar player, Mitchell, and the players around him we're not ready for the pressure and the difficulty of the playoffs, and that is the next step for a very, I think, talented roster to compete the way that the Knicks have in this series if they want to do that in the years ahead.
What is missing for Cleveland to get to that next level?
I don't think anything's missing on paper, Jim. I don't. I mean, this is one of those things I've talked about the last few weeks with people around the NBA and here on CBS Sports HQ. You've got to be a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense historically to win an NBA championship. Only three teams qualify, fit that mark this year. One is the Celtics, one is the Sixers, and one was Cleveland. So on paper in the regular season, they were really good. It's the execution of those things in the playoffs. It's certainly, I think, the development of some of those young players. Darius Garland had some games in this series where he just didn't play well. Young guy, but you can't have that from really, I think, your second best player, or at least your second most important scorer. I mentioned Evan Mobley. That guy can be a Defensive Player of the Year player. I mean, he can win that award in his career, but he's got to impact games consistently. There were times where he faded. And Donovan Mitchell, and I guess it depends what you think, what I think, what is true about his ability in big games, because he's got the talent, like this Cleveland team on paper, but he does have a history in Utah of leading teams in the regular season to a lot of success and expectation, and then it not coming to fruition in the postseason. So it's all those things. They got to mature. Those young guys have to play at a really high level, night in, night out, minute in, minute out in the postseason. And Donovan Mitchell, the superstar they went and got, has got to play like a superstar almost without exception in playoff games, the way that Jalen Brunson did, if they want to be what they want to be. But I think on paper, Jim, it's a very impressive team.
Yeah, Knicks took a lot of heat for not trading for Donovan Mitchell, including from someone like me. But they get past Mitchell and the Cavs and moving on to the next round. He's HQ NBA analyst Bill Reiter. Bill, we appreciate the insight. And this is what it looks like for the Cavaliers with regards to their second season history. With or without LBJ, and you could see it's a lot better with LeBron. The record at 4-14 without LeBron James in that lineup as the Cavaliers go out in 5.